don't be afraid to come to confession. Um, you know, confession is what Jesus wants us to do. You have to do an examination of your conscience. But if you haven't been to confession for a long time, that might be very difficult. So maybe you need to look at the Ten Commandments and pray to God. I think the first thing is, if you want to go to confession, ask God for the grace to do confession. I think that's the most important thing, because if you haven't been in confession for 20 years, you might be overwhelmed, or you might be like, when you pass by, I used to do that, like, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to tell people my business. So ask God for the grace to do a perfect confession of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and say, Mary, ask God to grant me the grace, or Jesus to grant me the grace to do a perfect confession, or a better confession, because it's not easy for people to tell the stuff that you did. Like, let's say you slept with somebody's wife. How you gonna, and you gotta go and tell somebody that. So ask God for that grace. I think that's the first thing you need to do before you do anything, because sometimes the process is very complicated. But if you ask God, then it's up to God with all your heart. So let's say you feel moved to go to confession. You're driving down the road and you see some sign in the church that says confession. Maybe you might want to come there and say to yourself, you know what? Dear God, grant me the grace to do a good confession the first time. Then you go into this stuff like examination of conscience. It's very difficult, because nowadays truth is twisted and we don't really live the life that Christ wants us to. So that's the first thing you might want to do. Practically speaking, if somebody used to be about that life, you know what I'm saying? I used to be about that life, you know what I mean? So I know how that goes. That it's very difficult to just go into the confessional from ground zero, you know what I'm saying? So you might want to do that and ask God and say, God, grant me the grace to do a perfect confession. If you're doing your thing, let's say you're like a Mac and you got like 10 women, it's going to be very difficult for you to go from that state. But if you ask God for the grace, then I think God gives the gifts freely, so you'll be all right. That's my tip. That's responsible for this place or something. But I like he's saying we must lead people to act like human beings first of all, and then like Christians, and finally we must help them become saints. People have been denatured from being a person, People are too worried about their possessions or their shoes, or temporal things. Stupidity, that's what foolishness is. Worried about temporal possessions. That's what God calls foolish. So when you become materialistic, you use your sense of being a person. You know what I mean? So that's what this guy is trying to say. He's trying to say that first and foremost, we must move people from materialism. If you've ever been around rich people that are super rich, millionaires, they don't consider you a person. If you've ever been somebody who drives a $500,000 car and you go there with your Toyota, they look down at you like you're not a person. That's part of it. But the saints say materialism is the biggest problem. That's why we have materialism is atheism, basically, that we matter, that I matter, that I'm reduced to simple matter. Materialism, atheism, there's no God, we all matter. We started with a big bang. That's materialism. That's what it is nowadays. So these saints from the 1700s, at the beginning of the Enlightenment, were like prophets. They were seeing what was coming. People always knew they were human beings. But with the Enlightenment and atheism and nihilism and all that type of stuff, people don't forget their people. That's why you have people dying for money. People shooting at each other for money. People robbing banks and dying in the process because they've forgotten what they are. So that's what he's trying to say, I think. He's trying to bring people, first and foremost, to know that they're human beings. That's why for me, money is nothing. You know what I'm saying? No one can look down on me for money because I'm made in the image of God. That's greater than anything else you can think of. That's why he's trying to tell us to act like humans, what God did when he created man. First man was naked. He had nothing, right? That's what it is. Into this world I came naked, into this world I live, say Job. So that's what he's trying to say. He also says a lot of things, but if you look at our condition right now, the human condition is at an all-time low. But it's never been like this before. And that's the situation here with these people here. You got to be careful. Paul says some people have to avoid, So some people have to get away from them instinctively for the sake of the soul. Paul warns us about that. So, some people have to just get away from them. It's probably profitable for your soul. This is the Stations of the Cross. here at the shrine. It's, it's, it's what the church and the saints took together and try to place a chronological happening of things in Jesus' way on the cross, starting from Pilate when Pilate washed his hands. That's what it is, the way of the cross. So you might want to do it. You know, these things are very difficult to do. Maybe just get a copy and understand what's going on. Just get the simplest you could do, okay? You go up there and just the simplest. You know, maybe you might not be the type of person who wants to spend an hour saying prayers and genuflecting. That's understandable. But try to get familiar with this situation. You know, try to understand what's going on. Take the Bible and see what the verses are. And try to know Jesus. You got to know Jesus nowadays for you to make it out here. Because without knowing Jesus, it's practically impossible to go anywhere. You can't do anything without Jesus. Without Jesus, everything's a joke. Without Jesus, everything falls apart. Without Jesus, everything doesn't work. Without Jesus, nothing works. Without Jesus, it's all hard. Life is hard without Jesus. I can tell you that. You know what I'm saying? I can tell you that. Without Jesus, you've got a lot of problems. And these things here were meant to remind us. You know, when you go through it, you know, you might not feel anything. That's not the point. You know what I mean? Life is not all about feeling great. You know what I'm saying? You know, so some people want to feel great, but it's not always about that. You know, and it doesn't feel great when you're driving to a place. Let's say you're in Las Vegas. The trip might not be that exciting through the desert, but once you get there, you know, it's a type deal. Look at this butterfly here. Overly friendly. Much like the stank. Hey, butterfly. What's the story, man? So here I am today at this church. Today is the dedication of the Church of St. Mary of the Snows, Our Lady of Snows. And on that feast day, I'm here at the shrine. Isn't Mary great? Mary's amazing, ain't she? I'm at the shrine on the feast day of the dedication of the Church of St. Mary of the Snows. Just can't believe this, man. I wasn't paying attention that much. I thought St. Mary's Major. St. Mary's Major was the Church of Snows. They're right about that. It's amazing, isn't it? That's the power of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. O Sacrament most holy, O Sacrament divine, all praise and all thanksgiving be every moment thine name. Thank you, Jesus, for allowing me to come here on the feast day. So today we're going to give you a little tour of Mary. Mary has many titles. She's been given titles by her parents. The best way to explain this is like if you take a football player like Brett Favre or Peyton Manning. When he was playing for the Colts, it was Peyton Manning playing for the Colts. When he was playing for the Broncos, he was Peyton Manning playing for the Broncos. We could take Russell Wilson. He was playing for the Seattle Seahawks. He was a Seattle Seahawk. When he's playing for the Broncos, it's a Denver Bronco. Let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride. So here we can Mary, Our Lady of Africa. I've never heard about this one, so I'm not going to say much. This is the Oblate Madonna. I've not heard about this one too, but it's another title of Mary. When she appears to a place, they give her a title. This is Our Lady of Czestochowa. She appeared is it Poland? I'm not sure. One of the, Czechoslovakia or something, or Czech Republic, I'm not sure. But it's just a title of Mary, and she did some miracles. This is the child Jesus, the infant Jesus, the the Holy Infant. You know, Jesus was the son of Mary. People don't want to hear that stuff. So that's little Jesus and that's Jesus. So it's like mother, son. So when he was on the cross, Jesus said, woman, behold thy son, and son, behold thy mother. Same thing. You know, everything's reference to Christ. You know, this here, I don't know what's going on here, but this just looks a little bit too San Francisco for my liking. But hey, it is what it is. And this is Our Lady of Hope. Our Lady of Hope. So she's telling us we gotta pray. She's telling us about Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? The stories that on the evening of January 17th, 1871, she appeared to some kids in France, and she responded to the prayers of the people of that town, directed to her on Our Lady of Hope for an end to the Franco-Prussian War. So this is what happened, is that Prussia was crushing France because France had gone overboard. You know, they were like living like just like we are in the United States. They had lost their Catholic ways and they were just like interested in partying, drinking, afternoon sex. You know, if you look at the Monets and the Impressionists, that's what they did. Afternoons in the garden, socializing, going out, meeting men and women and getting it on. And then, so she appeared with this banner, and it said, "But pray, my children, God will hear your prayers in a little while. My son allows himself to be moved by compassion." So within days, the war ended, and the victorious Prussian army retreated, and an armistice was signed. No young men in the village were hurt. All returned safely. Right? So this is what it is. So Mary helps people out. I mean, I can attest to that. Walking on them countrysides, sometimes you see Mary helps us. Our Lady of Knock, or Cock, Knock. She was from Ireland. It's one of the titles of Mary. You know what I mean? This is Our Lady of Fatima. This is the most prevalent Marian apparition of the time. She appeared to these two little Portuguese peasant kids, and she was telling them that the world war is going to end. That's World War I, and there's going to be another war, World War II, because people's not going to repent. And then she warned us about Russia, right? About the errors of Russia. And Russia would cause a lot of problems. So that's Mary right there. Mary, Our Lady, please pray for us.